Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. You're here for a city council meeting, and it's Monday, April 15th, 2019, or as we affectionately call it, Tax Day. We'll start the meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Solomon, Modrick, Nordstrom, Drew, Scott, Drury, Laurenti, Roberts, Armstrong, Lewis. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll have an invocation by Vicki Hagen French, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
I would like to begin with gratitude. Standing here this day, so grateful to be in this nation, in this room, in this country, in this city. To be standing here amongst the beloved citizens of this city, to those dedicated to being called forth to serve as council members. From this place of gratitude, I also am very thankful for the nature that we have in this country, for the expanded awareness that we can give our condolences to Our Lady, who is just barely standing in Paris, France tonight. So as we come together as a nation, together as a people, as humanity, I recognize that there is an infinite presence that is the very heart and essence of all of this, that somehow, somewhere, each and every person is being uplifted, supported, and sustained. That this day, in this meeting, that every council member, everything that has come before them, everyone who has come to prepare, everything that meets this agenda that stands here today, the people here with the interest, the absolute dialogue and the discussion and the decisions that come here are coming from that very sacred place of oneness, no matter what we call it. May we call it infinite, may we call it creator, may we call it God, and most certainly may we call it love. So today I bless these decisions. I bless everyone who has come forth and shown their citizenship and their desire to support this system that we call democracy. I come here to support the decisions made among these council members, and I'm so grateful for the citizens who elected them. I am hoping and wishing that they are absolutely divine in the contrast from which they bring, each of them here to uplift this city in the greatest city that we can possibly imagine and live in. So from that place of gratitude, from blessing this meeting, from blessing everything in the discussions, to blessing Paris, France, and to everything that is going on for their beloved city, for their beloved nation and country, and for the whole world that this Our Lady has represented at some point and some time in life. And so from that place, I simply gently close this and acknowledge this and bless this and letting it go by saying, Amen, Amin, Ashe, Aho, Shalom. And so it is.
America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And now we will adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. This is a time when alterations can be made for the agenda or it can be approved as is. And I would have a request to the council to add number 2A for the Purple Heart presentation. Okay, we have a motion by Solomon, second by Becky Drury to adopt. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So awards and recognitions. Could we have all of our telecommunicators come up here, please? And the police and fire chief. And Mark Eisenbrun. I have a proclamation to read. Whereas the City of Rapid City supports and appreciates the work and the dedication of Pennington County Emergency Communications Center to Rapid City and our surrounding community. And whereas the prompt response of local police, fire, and/or emergency medical services is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas 911 professionals or public safety telecommunicators are often the first trained point of contact in an emergency, they begin the important work of obtaining essential information, remaining calm, calming others, and sending the appropriate responders to the right location. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are often the first contact citizens have with emergency services and serve as a single vital link to the emergency personnel, telecommunicators ensure the safety of each responding agency through continuous radio monitoring and sharing of critical information. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Pennington County Emergency Services Communications Center demonstrate compassion, understanding, and professionalism to our community. Now, therefore, I, Steve Allender, Mayor of Rapid City, South Dakota, hereby proclaim April 14th through the 20th, 2019, as Telecommunicators Appreciation Week in Rapid City. And I urge all Rapid City residents to participate in recognizing, supporting, and appreciating our telecommunicators.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We're very honored. The point of this week is to help honor the people that normally work behind the scenes. We're not out in the public eye interacting with people like law enforcement or fire services or medical services, but we're there involved in every one of these calls. As we'd like to say in the center, every emergency response begins with us. So this is our opportunity to get our staff in the limelight a little bit and let people see what they do every day and show their dedication. Thank you.
I just want to express my thanks to all of you and the rest of your team members that aren't here. We very much appreciate the important work that you do. You are 24/7, 365. That is one of the challenges of our career field. But I can tell you that each one of these dispatchers, I know that they've got some really good skills. They're able to, in one breath, hold two different conversations. I've seen it many times, and it's just amazing. They can be talking on the radio to law enforcement responding, and they are talking on the phone, and in one breath, with the click of their mouse, they're able to manage what they're saying goes to a different place, and it's usually when things are really chaotic. So they are the calm in the chaos, and we appreciate it very much, so thank you.
I think most of you out in the crowd would agree with me on this statement. Very few of us like to be told where to go, because that usually is a bad thing. And we are honored and want to thank them for telling us where to go and when to go, because without them, there would be no emergency services. We wouldn't know, short of looking for a column of smoke or something, we wouldn't know the stuff that they tell us. And so with that, I really send my appreciation to all of you for what you do for this community.
Make no mistake about it, the emergency services and the safety of our communities across this nation, and especially here in Rapid City, Pennington County, begin right here with the 911 telecommunicators. So let's give them one more round of applause.
Shots on 2, 1, 2. More. 2, 1, 2.
I'd like to call up Sherry Thurston and the members of the Sustainability Committee to present an award.
So quite an act to follow. But we're presenting an award. I'm with the Sustainability Committee. The Sustainability Committee has been with Rapid City for the past 7 years. And so one of the things we do is we present an award quarterly to an outstanding member. We have a criteria sheet. And so this month's award goes to Western Dakota Tech for their Project Attuned. And that equals advanced technical training utilizing natural environmental design. Brian Mitchell and Dr. Kelsey Murray are the ones that have been leading this. I'm not going to talk too in depth about their project because I'm sure that they can tell so much more about it. But I have to say that when they meet the challenge, they meet it and exceed it. They won a national award for this, for their aquaponics project that they had, I think, 2 days to prepare for that. And so, and just to tell you, even on our, for our award, we have all these boxes you check, and if you fill in enough of the boxes, you qualify. And there was 59 boxes to fill in, and they left 8 empty. So, so they really go above and beyond. And if you're interested, after you hear them speak, about hearing them speak more and in depth and seeing some more of what's going on, they are going to be at Earth Day. It's April 27th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we'll be there too. So. What do I do? Oh.
There's an Ann in the back.
You want to come up, Dr. B? Oh, she's here.
Okay. Well, congratulations. Okay, thank you very much. Would you like to say a few words? I will. Thank you. Okay.
All the words. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you for this, especially the Sustainability Committee. This is an honor to see the folks out here and to be recognized for the work that we do. The question started for us in this project is, what can we do to make Rapid City better? And it further morphed into what can we do to make Rapid City better and teach the skills that our students need to have to be successful in their lives. And these young men right here are examples of that. These 2 of them are members of the team that won the National Science Foundation Community College Innovation Challenge that was held in Washington, D.C. last summer. Very proud of these guys. And then we have another student from the environmental engineering team that just won the first place at the hydrology conference for their presentation. So I'm extremely proud of these students, and I think it really sets the stage for the real change that Western Dakota Tech is bringing, and we're just very proud to be at the front of that, and I can't wait to be back here and tell you guys all more about what we're doing. So thank you.
Given more details about Earth Day. I'm sorry. I'm like deer in the headlights when I get in front of a crowd. So it's April 27th. It's at the 4-H building over at the Central States Fairground. And it is from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. I believe that they're going to have a competition, and the winner reveal will be at Earth Day. And there will also be a People's Choice Award. So people can participate in that too, and they're going to be helping with some of the activities, and it's going to be really fun, and I think the city does partner with that, with our group, so hope to. Who does this? Does the Earth Day? Rapid City Sustainability Committee and Dakota Rural Action partner, so.
Thank you, Sherry.
All right.
Shots. 2. Here. 1, 2. Second shot. 2, 1, 2.
Thank you.
Now if we could have Ken Tennyson and his group come forward.
On behalf of the Military Order of the Purple Heart for the Department of the Dakotas, I would like to present to Mayor Aldrin a sign depicting Rapid City as a Purple Heart city. I know it's been about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago that it was voted on and proclaimed, and we got the signs Friday, so we brought them up here tonight on behalf of Chapter 5354, which is a chapter right here in Rapid City, and also Chapter 5355 out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. The department is from both North Dakota and South Dakota. And I'm Ken Tunison, and I'm the department commander on behalf. Very much. Thank you. And you have the other ones in the office?
Yes, we do.
Thanks for answering the question at the legislative session.
My pleasure. Well, thank you, everyone. It's very important to acknowledge the relationship we have with our servicemen and women, and especially those who have sacrificed a great deal with personal health while serving. Many of our city council members are veterans, and so I hope this is as proud a moment for them and the rest of us as it can be. So thank you, and Rapid City will proudly display these. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. Okay, now is the time for general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. And we have a speaker request form from Jean Tyon. And Jean, just so you know, for public comment, we'll have 3 minutes. You can watch these lights over here. They're just like a traffic light. So when it's yellow, you're getting close, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rapid City Council, Mr. Mayor, for allowing me to speak today. I am here regarding the Community Development Block Grant for reconsideration for a request for funding. And what we're working on is a cultural-based recovery, substance abuse recovery program, which is, there's none here in Rapid City at the moment. And it's basically reconnecting our values, reconnecting our ancestral values and to who we are. I think this is what's missing a lot in Rapid City. A lot of people have, I guess you'd say, strayed away from or forgot or have not even known who we are. So we'd like to instill that and bring that to the forefront and to see if we can address the issues of alcohol and drug and such things that are affecting the community. There's been a lot of issues such as the homeless, the detox, the Department of Corrections, with a high population of Native Americans. And I believe our program can adjust some behavior to help and lower that percentage. So I'm here today and like to ask if you can, for the reconsideration of that funding request. And I'm also presenting at South Dakota Methamphetamine Conference in May in Pierre, South Dakota, in front of in the Capitol. So to present on what we're doing here also. So, thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Councilmember Darla Drew for her time.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Just an unbiased comment. I think you've been doing a great job. So, I'm here tonight to talk about the Radiatrics Book Drive program. It's in its 20th year, and this was started by myself and my husband to provide books for children that were in health crisis or family crisis, any of those kinds of things where their families didn't have the resources to have books in the home. And so the collection idea was to get gently used books, because so many families have these books that are just waiting for the college kids to come back, and they're not going to come back for them, I assure you. Maybe a few, but really not all of them. So just a way to find those books, a new good home, and the books go home with the children, and so we can build literacy in the homes. This has been going on for 20 years. We've raised about 160,000 books. I haven't counted them all. It's an approximation. But if you really gave a $5 value to all those, it's more than $500,000 worth of books that have gone back into the community. And that's due to the generosity and caring of the people that we have here in Rapid City. There are drop points. This will go on through May 6th. And then this year they'll be donated to the South Dakota Department of Health, and also a new take-home library that's going in Kyle, South Dakota on the Pine Ridge Reservation. So if you do have any used books at home that need a new place and new children to love them, you can drop them off at the following points: the Rapid City Library, the Dahl Art Center, Books A Million, all the Black Hills Federal Credit Union locations, and our new donor point this year, Fire Station Number 1 at 10 Main. And the firemen have been very generous. That they collected some books last fall and helped out a school in Allen that had to replace all their library books. So I really appreciate your help and hope that anybody that's listening and anyone in the audience, if you have those books, that you will find them a new home before May 6th. And I appreciate that. You can go to radiatrics.org if you need any more information. Thank you.
Thank you, and that takes us to the end of general public comment, and now non-public hearing items 3 through 44. There are no speaker requests for items 3 through 38, so we'll go on to consent items. 3 through 38. Would the council like to pull any of these items or approve them all? Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I pull item 13 and 22?
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may pull item number 27 and 32.
Any others? If not, may we have a motion?
Motion to approve the balance?
Motion to approve by Scott, second by, I think Chad Lewis was over there with a second or a first. All in favor of approval of the consent with the exception of 13, 22, 27, and 32, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 13, approve contract extension on contract awarded May 2017 to Simon for the purchase of hot mix asphalt for use by various city departments. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. First, may I make a motion to approve, and if I get a second, retain the floor?
Second by Steve Laurenti. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to inform the public that we're seeing a lot of comments about potholes within the city, and I just wanted to make an announcement that the asphalt plant mix, easy for me to say, is going to be firing up the next week, approximately Monday, April 22nd. And if that is, but just to be on the safe side, the staff out there is telling me that it'll probably be more apt to be open on the middle of the week. So make your phone calls to the pothole hotline. We're getting a lot in right now, but we can always take more because I see a lot of comments about potholes throughout the city. Staff is what we've got right now. We're doing the best we can with what we got, and I think the crew has been handling it very well. It doesn't mean we've got it down solid pat, but we're getting there and looking good. So with this hot asphalt plant mix getting started up next week, look out. We're going to get busy on fixing potholes. Thank you, Mayor. I yield.
Darla Drew.
Can I ask a question of Dale Tech, please?
Yes.
Dale, when you go to your spring fixes here, you don't just rely on the calls. You have streets that you have earmarked and identified as being problem areas that you're taking care of. They don't necessarily have to be called in, so you're doing your due diligence there. So
absolutely, we have a night crew and a day crew, so we work nearly 24 hours a day. These dedicated employees are out on our streets every day, so they know the trouble areas. They know where to go. They live in the city. They have to find their way home as well. So we have a very good idea of where the trouble areas are, but we certainly appreciate the public calling in. That's another way to provide good service to our citizens and our travelers is those phone calls. So we certainly appreciate those.
I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you very much.
Okay, motion for 13 is for approval. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 22, approve the authorization of the Mayor and Human Resources Department to create a facilities manager position for the City School Administration Center. Richie Nordstrom.
Again, Mayor, if I can make a motion and get a second, I'd like to retain the floor.
Motion to approve?
Yes, if I get...
Second by Becky Drury. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm getting out of order here. Yes, the motion is to approve. Nick, our email exchange said that this position is going to be housed underneath the mayor's office?
That is correct.
Thank you. And I was listening to the discussion at the Legal and Finance Committee last Wednesday. Very good discussion on this position coming up, and I'm all in favor of this. Strongly support it. And what I'd like to encourage, if we can, I know it's a little premature, but eventually build this up to something that we can bring into the CIP committee. Because I see government buildings on the list each and every year that we need a lot of support on. So having a fresh pair of eyes looking at this would be a great benefit to all of the government buildings within the city. But I understand this is just to start with, just CSAC to begin with. So any other additional thoughts that I'm missing out on?
No, I think you're right. This position, as of July 1st or thereabout, the school district will abandon this building and it will be up to us to maintain the facility. We've not done that in its 30-year history, so this is the first step in maintaining this building, and then with the possibility to grow into something that the mayor and the city council would like to see it in the future. But we have to take this first step, creating the job, getting a person hired, focusing on this building first because that's our immediate need, and then where it goes from there is up to leadership.
Thank you, Nick. Or Mr. Strout, thank you very much. I yield.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I direct a question to you?
Yes.
I brought this up at Legal and Finance, and I put it to Nick, but it was tough for him to answer. But is part of your vision for this position to kind of look at the master planning for all the city-owned or city-owned assets, especially the ones that are operational to the city, so that we know what should be replaced when, and it's on a cycle, and rather than having facilities really come all at once to get remodeled or repaired or rebuilt, which can be very expensive, but get on a kind of a cycle and plan that out, kind of a master planning for our facilities. Is that part of your vision for this, or is that something completely different?
That's the entire vision for it. We have city-owned buildings that we're using for city operations now. Right. We've been doing essentially the bare minimum to take care of our city-owned assets, which is something that we're addressing now. So our immediate need is with the City Administration Center.
Right.
And when we get that building handled, that employee then will become part of the planning process to look for a longer range city facility plan, which will include not only operational buildings, but other city-owned assets out in the community, such as museums or senior centers, to not only look at the maintenance, but also the long-term viability of the buildings and to help with the decision-making. So that's a 2019 goal.
Yeah. And I appreciate that kind of long-term thinking for the position. Obviously, the immediate need is this building with everything going on, but we know we have to take care of our facilities. We have millions and millions and millions of taxpayer dollars invested into them, and maintaining them helps us prolong them. And this is by no means a slight on all of the various departments that are running these facilities. They're doing the best they can with what they have, but if you tour some of them, such as the streets department, quite frankly, it could be a lot better for them. And we also know our fire department and other entities all across the city. So looking at those and making sure that we take care of these assets so that we can get the most bang for the buck over the long term, because they're expensive if we don't. So I'm glad to hear that's part of your vision. Just wanted to get that answer from you directly. Thank you.
Okay, and just to add on to the answer one more little bit, it's going to be temporarily housed in the mayor's office until we get a plan together, until we understand what the next step will be. It's not that the mayor's office wants to hoard this type of authority over things, but there's no other logical place at this moment. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. And may I ask you a couple follow-up questions?
Yes.
So in this position, I had asked Nick in the past if this was going to expand the FTE total, or full-time employees total. His indication, and you weren't available for the conversation, so I just want to make sure and pose this to you. Nick's understanding was that this was not going to increase the full-time employees for the city at this time, because we have some openings, such as the business analyst that left, and that position has not been filled, and there's been a couple other positions. And since this is being housed under the mayor's office, is that the FTE that's being accumulated at this temporarily, or looking at it?
Well, on paper, temporarily, that's the way it will appear, but that's not the overall intent. The intent is to add an FTE using no additional budgeted funds, because those funds already exist in the City Hall maintenance and repair budget. So at the time when we use to fill those other positions, then it will actually be a 1 FTE increase.
So you do plan, so not for 2019, but potentially for 2020, increasing the full-time employees?
More than likely, yes.
Okay. And with that said, are you currently actively trying to fill that budget analyst position, or is that being left open or going to be removed from the full-time employee?
We're not currently seeking applicants, but that's going to be part of a realignment within the mayor's office.
Okay. And then the one other question I had, Mayor, is just in the title itself of this, it says, facilities manager. And I think between Alderman Solomon's discussion with you and your answers, my biggest question was, when you think of a manager, they're managing resources, whether those are equipment and, hard equipment or, buildings, or if it's human resources. They tend to manage things. When you had spoken earlier today when we met, you had kind of indicated that you almost see this more of a, because you don't know what the skill sets of this new employee are currently, you're looking more of this as more of a project engineer type thing to start with their concentration on the CSAC building?
I believe the primary concentration would be on the CSAC building. And as we address maintenance and repair needs in other city facilities, then that could cause the need for additional personnel, but we don't know the answer to that yet.
And Nick also had indicated when we talked that when I brought up this manager thing, that to start with, that if a department, or when this is realigned someplace else outside of the mayor's office, that it may not extend to increasing full-time employees, because there are some maintenance employees that may actually fold underneath this manager. Is that your vision?
It's not, again, that's part of the planning process that will take place in the remainder of the year, but there are not full-time maintenance employees in other city facilities, but there are hours being used out of existing staff to take care of facilities. So we'll be inventorying that expenditure of hours, wages, and seeing what we have in order to divert funding perhaps from those city departments to this centralized model.
All right. Well, thank you for answering the questions. I know there's been separate discussions. Nick has been trying to answer it, and I know this is a newly created position, and whenever we have a newly created position, even like the budget analyst, even back when the council hired for Compass, we hired an employee. We really don't know what that's going to look like until we try it a little bit, and that priority-based budget kind of didn't come to fruition the way that everybody thought it was going to. So, but I do think, and I agree with Alderman Solomon, our facilities do need, I think, a focus from an individual that is going to take it to the next level and be able to kind of organize and schedule those repairs so that we can keep our assets in good working order. So thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Nick.
Okay, motion for item 22 is for approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 27, authorize mayor and finance officer to sign a loan documentation with Black Hills Community Bank for Parks Division equipment in the amount of $145,000. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve and retain the floor for a couple questions, if I may.
Second by Richie Nordstrom. Go ahead.
Thank you. And may I ask our Parks and Rec Director, Jeff Bigler, a couple questions?
Of course.
Thank you. This may actually cross over to Pauline's option too. But so, Jeff, on the documents that are attached on this, it says it is for the mower, and you had already indicated that this was for a mower. The loan document looks like it's for 5 years of payments?
Correct.
And it just seems to me, and sorry if I didn't catch this last week, but it just seems to me that in the past we have paid for equipment outright. I do know that this is larger because most of the equipment purchases that we make, they're right around, $25,000 to $50,000. This is $145,000. Do we do these larger purchases like this through a loan typically?
Well, we have done it in the past when we have a larger piece of equipment. This is how we purchased our large bucket truck that we use, which was pretty expensive. Also, how we financed the new equipment for the Meadowbrook Golf Course a few years ago. So while we do also purchase items outright, as you mentioned, we have used this process before to purchase a larger piece of equipment.
And so being able to take out this loan, and it's going to extend out over a 5-year period within your operating budget so that you're not dipping into CIP or any of the other funds, in your operating budget, you can make these payments over the next 5 years without really strapping yourself.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I yield.
Okay, motion on the floor for 27 is for approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 32, acknowledge the property tax process presented by Shannon Rittberger, Pennington County Equalization. Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to acknowledge and retain the floor if I can get a second.
Second by Laurenti. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just really wanted to take a point of, to thank Shannon for coming and giving up his time in order to do that presentation. I also want to express my appreciation for the City Council members of the Legal and Finance Committee who did stay, and they listened, and they also asked questions about it. It's a really good presentation, and primarily I'm making this point to our taxpayers. I know a lot of times our taxpayers, well, I won't speak for the taxpayers, I know a lot of times when it comes to me looking at my tax bill for property taxes, I get confused. And so the presentation that Shannon presented, it is on the video for the Legal and Finance Committee last week. The slides on it are really detailed and really good to give a good indication or a good explanation of how your property taxes are generated, starting from the assessed value, because so many people confuse the assessed value with their property taxes, and they'll say their taxes went up 10% when they mean their assessment. It's a process that expands over a few months, and the county is not the only one involved, the city is not the only one involved, the schools are not the only ones involved. The state, who does not collect property taxes, are actually involved in this process. So even though they don't collect property taxes, they have a say-so in how much we are taxed. So I would just like to take this point. It's on the video. Shannon has presented it at the legislative session in Pierre. He's also presented it to the county commissioners. He offered it up to present it to the city council members. I know many of the city council members who were not even at the Legal and Finance Committee meeting did go back and stream it, and I appreciate that too. This is a very complicated process, and the more that we just, kind of like all schooling, the more that we review it, that we start getting those things that fit into place so that we can understand it a little bit better. So again, your taxing authorities for property taxes, just want to remind everybody, is the city, the school district, and the county. And basically, typically rounding for approximation on your tax bill, 50% of your property tax bill is the school district, 30% is the county, and 20% is the city. And I know a lot of times in the Rapid City Journal, the city gets blamed for all the taxes. Just want to let you know we're the smallest part. But yes, we do tax you on your property taxes. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to give out the thank yous and the kudos. Thanks.
So motion on the floor is to acknowledge. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us through consent. Now, non-consent items 39 through 44. We'll open the public comment on items 39 through 44, and we have a few speaker requests. First, we have Kurt Small on item 41 and 42.
Hello, my name is Kurt Small. I've had the privilege of operating and owning the Elk Cedar for the last 25 years. And when I was filling out my consent form, I was really wishing there was a bit of both mark instead of opposed or against, because some of this parking ordinance proposal, I think there is some good stuff in there. There's two things that are not good in it. The first one is the proposal to change all the peripheral parking back to 2 hours. I think that's a horrible idea for my customers, for everybody's customers downtown. Inevitably, there are going to be people that visit downtown that choose not to park in the metered areas. Either they're full, they're driving a big vehicle. There's lots of reasons that people would choose to not park in the core. I walked today from the city library down to Main Street Square, round trip. I'm a fairly athletic guy. I walk at a quick pace. Took me 15 minutes. That takes away a good chunk of the already limited amount of time that we're allowing these people to park. You know, I've always gotten the impression that a lot of this proposal was really focused on punishing employees. I'm not here tonight to speak for my employees, any other businesses' employees. I'm here to speak for the customers that come downtown. Outside of the metered core area, they have 0 options. Now, it's being said they can stop down to the city finance office and get a one-day pass for $7 to $10. I don't know how realistic that is for somebody that's bringing a bunch of kids downtown to hang out at Main Street Square. Do they really want to try and find a parking spot in front of city finance to go in and pay their $10 for a parking permit? I don't know. My hunch is they won't. The 2-hour time is simply not enough. I've been told throughout this whole process, and for the record, I have been at every input session, public forum. As a private citizen, I've participated in every level that I could throughout all of this. I have a pretty good working knowledge of what the city's trying to do, and I think they're going to accomplish some of the intent of it. The 2-hour parking, I've been told throughout this whole thing that the way that it's written, that the committee will have the options to easily change things if they get it wrong. Okay, that's great. Can we err on the side of caution? Can we not go to the 2 hours, leave it 3 hours, and then see where it's at? There's already going to be some strain on those areas anyways, because of some other things in the proposal. I really urge you not to accept the 2-hour parking on the peripheral. The second thing is a $25 parking ticket for a visitor who didn't understand the app, overstayed their parking stall by a little bit. $25 is definitely going to be a deterrent for employees. It's going to be a deterrent for everybody. I watched a car today from Colorado get a $25 ticket or a parking ticket because they were in a loading zone too long. It's going to send a pretty grim message to all the people that are coming downtown. It's going to have collateral damage well beyond the employees that they're trying to affect. I wish I had more time, but I see the red light. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Talbot Wazorek.
Hi, Talbot Wazorek. I'm here as a downtown business owner. So I'm with Gunderson Palmer. I'm one of the managing partners there. We're at the corner of 5th and Main. And then I also served on the parking work task force that went through some of these issues. And Kurt's a great neighbor, and I appreciate Kurt, and he and I have had these discussions. It's a difficult thing when you're ever changing on parking, because there's some things that I was like, I wish it would go this way a little bit more, but you got to look at a global picture. And I don't really see it as punishing downtown employees or punishing people. That's not what is intended. I think what's being intended here and what the position was trying to get it so the high desired parking spaces had better turnover. You know, where my office is located, it's got 3-hour parking in front of it. I'm for the meters. I will get some of my partners and some of my clients complain about the meters, but believe me, they complain more because there are employees parking in those spots for the full 3 hours, or, you know, quite frankly, I've done it myself where I've got a meeting in Sturgis at 11 and I park the 3 hours in front so I can just load my car, and it's just easier when I come in at 7:30 in the morning. Well, that's going to push me, you know, I'm also, as my partners like to say, I'm also cheap. So that's going to push me back to the ramp where I've got a parking, and I'll carry my box over to the ramp, and I think you see some of that go on. And, you know, it's a lot. Just a couple months ago, I'm walking down St. Joe. 3 women come out of the beauty school there, and I hear them talking about where to go for lunch, and they all 3 agree to meet at a lunch place downtown. They'll just all 3 move their cars to a different location and meet there. So a lot of people spend those 3 hours on the main drag. Now, Kurt's point about whether it should be 2 or 3 in the peripherals, I think that's open for debate. But I think there's a lot of really good things in this. I think going to a committee is a very good idea because it's going to allow that committee to do some tweaking of this as it adjusts. The idea of doing some long-term parking on some of those side streets where you can get some passes makes very good sense. And I think it's a very good step in the right direction. The downtown's changed a lot. I think we need to change the parking. I've been downtown since I moved to town. My office has been downtown since '91, and let me tell you, it's a different place than it was in '91. It's a different place than it was 10 years ago. And we just got to get some adjustments on this parking, and I think it'll help long-term. And I think it'll help the downtown retail to get more turnover in those prime spots, too. So I appreciate getting the opportunity to serve on the task force, and you giving me a chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Aaron Kruger.
Good evening. My name is Erin Kruger, and I'm an owner of 5th and Main Furniture by Freed's. We're located at the corner of 5th and Main. Name gives it away. I'm here to speak about the proposed parking, obviously. Our business occupies the corner of one of the busiest intersections in downtown Rapid City. However, the downtown parking and strategic plan indicates that we exist in a peripheral area. We're on the busiest intersection in downtown Rapid City, but it's a peripheral area. Therefore, parking should be free. I question the downtown parking study on that assessment alone. With the current proposal, we can expect employees and patrons of downtown to park in front of our building and walk 15 steps across the street to avoid paying the meters. It will happen. It will take up the spots in front of our retail location, and we need those spots for our customers. We also question why the current proposal would eliminate all controls in non-metered areas on Saturday. It will go from the proposed 2-hour parking to free parking all day on Saturdays. Saturdays is the busiest day of the week for retail sales, and we're right next door to Main Street Square. If you notice, they host a lot of events, which is great, about 2 to 3 a month, not to mention the parents and kids using the sprinklers in summer and skating in the winter. I don't believe they will pay $1 an hour to park. I believe they will go to the closest area that's free parking, which is in front of my building, and hang out all day rather than feed the meter and take up spots in front of our store. The Saturday free issue doesn't even address the employees working downtown who will covet the free spot all day. We have spent the last 18 months renovating our building inside and out. We love being downtown. We're committed to the success of downtown Rapid City, but we believe we have set the bar in terms of initiating the resurgence of the East to Fifth movement, and we must have a fighting chance to do business without discrimination from a parking standpoint. We understand why the city sees a need to generate revenue from parking downtown. However, given the current options, we would actually opt for meters in front of our store versus the 2-hour free parking non-metered on Saturday and Sunday outlined at present. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. That will bring the public comment period to a close. And now we go on to ordinances, starting with item number 39. Second reading, ordinance 6320, an ordinance to amend section 8.08.090 of the Rapid City Municipal Code to prohibit unlawful deposits of refuse at city-designated drop-off sites.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion to approve by Scott and second by Drew. All in favor of approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 40, first reading, ordinance 6319, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Spurlick Consulting for Westview Land Company, LLC, for a rezoning request from General Commercial District to Light Industrial District for property generally described as being located at 2000 Deadwood Avenue.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Drew, second by Lewis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 41. First reading, ordinance 6321, an ordinance allowing the installation of parking meters and revising the existing time zones in downtown Rapid City by amending Chapter 10.44 of the Rapid City Municipal Code.
Move to approve.
Okay. Motion to approve by Drury, second by Laurenti. And we'll go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Given this quite a bit of thought since our last committee meeting, and had the opportunity to visit with quite a few downtown business owners and people in the community. And first of all, I guess I would just say I'm very appreciative to the team that put this together, because quite frankly, the essence of this is really good. However, I think in times like this, finding common ground can be a radical act. And I've heard it said that compromise is a way to keep no one happy. But what I know is in a healthy relationship, compromise is the key to having a healthy relationship, and that includes the relationship between the government and the people they serve. So what I love about this is modernizing our meters and placing them in the most premium spots is smart and reasonable. That is the best part of this plan. I love it. I support it. It's the meat and potatoes of it. It's excellent. It's not going to make everybody happy, but it is a good move for us. But I do believe there is some room for compromise on this plan. And so based on the feedback that I've heard from the public, from those who work downtown, I'm going to suggest 3 tweaks to the council to consider. These are minor, I think, in nature because really the essence of it still remains the same. For one, I would suggest that we continue with our current plan of having 3-hour parking time limits in the non-metered spots. I think there's a lot of reasons why that's been a good thing. For one, a lot of people, take time. If you eat dinner and shop, or eat lunch and shop or anything like that, it's gonna take some time, especially on Saturdays and summer days, as we know. 2, I would say I saw something that said that the current fine of $10 doesn't quite meet the cost of enforcement. And so I think the fine should cover the cost of enforcement. I'm not sure that's $25 though, because $10 is right on the edge. So I would suggest $15 as a suggestion, because it should be no more, no less for the cost of enforcement. That's not where we should make our money on this. And 3, for employee parking permits, and this is going to be different from each block, but my suggestion is to at least have half of that city block in the red zones not permitted, so that they allow for fluidity of customer parking coming in and out, rather than taking them all up. So as we just heard from 5th and Main, and there's some other business owners, they don't want all the permitted parking to be on their spots because that's the best spots, it'll get locked up. But if we at least leave half of those blocks free for business and the other half free for permitted, then that allows maybe a compromise where we can have employees have a good place to park, but again, allow some movement for customers. Our goal here is not just to grow the revenue of the city, but to encourage revenue growth for businesses downtown. I think these changes will ensure that we stay true to the purpose of the parking plan, but also accommodate for the concerns of those who work, live, and frequent our remarkable downtown Rapid City. And so, again, this is a little bit of a compromise. I still think it's a way to have a win-win. The big part of this, again, remains the same, and that is the fact that we will have our premium parking be paid for, and the others you won't have to pay for, but I think 3 hours, especially considering the walking distance and the multiple activities you can do. The whole point is that people spend money downtown. That's what we want. That's where the revenue really is, and that's sales tax, which is what we live and breathe on. Parking revenue should pay for our parking goals, but I want revenue in the businesses that pay the sales taxes that come back to us to help us fill in potholes and all of that. So at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about business, especially downtown, and freeing that up. And so that's what I'm laying out here for you, the council, to consider, those 3 options. I'm more than happy to repeat it again. I'm going to save a little time in case I have to chime in, but thought I'd throw that out there. I yield.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a substitute motion. I'd like to make a substitute motion on the motion. We have a motion? Yeah, making a substitute on the motion. Thank you. Thank you. After you. With the recommendation. I think it's a good recommendation of study. The 3-hour non-metered, the 15-hour compromise, the employee permitting process being at a minimum of 2 blocks off of the core, so that it is a setback on employee permitting to incorporate into this plan.
Second. Point of order. Mr. Mayor, wouldn't this be more in regards to the next item? Since isn't this item just approving the installation of the meters themselves, and then the next is the actual ordinance to regulate them?
So we have time zones on this one. So we want to split up that?
Which one I mean, I understand that we're basically, they're tied together. I'm just.
Yeah, they are.
But they're not. They're still separate items.
Let's go to Sarah Hansel.
Thank you.
Did I have a second on that?
Yes, I said.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to speak to the 2 ordinance items, and actually the details of the ordinance essentially establish they sort of clean up the parking regulations, establish the board. They do not set the map. The maps we're looking at, the areas that we're talking about, the number of permits. The way the ordinance is set up, those are not set by the ordinance. So in voting on the ordinance, they're separate issues. Though I'm taking notes and would like the chance to respond to some of the comments that are being made as well. But just to clarify, the ordinance is separate from some of the details that are being discussed for change.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. The motion on the floor is to amend the ordinance to reflect 3-hour time zones in the peripheral areas, reduce the parking fine.
The time zones aren't established in ordinance. The advisory board, the staff working together with that will be setting those parameters over time as the parking system changes and we adapt to needs and respond to issues that come up. So the ordinance doesn't set the time zones or anything like that.
Or fees.
Correct.
Okay, so I'll send it back to the motion maker to make an appropriate motion then.
Thank you. So since it's a policy setting, if I could just clarify, so you can clean me up here. So it's policy setting of which we have linked in, but we're not setting policy right now, we're setting change of ordinance. Then we move policy to the number 42 because we have that linked in.
The policy isn't adopted through the ordinance, so that's meant to be handled by the Parking Advisory Board. So this whole process is about not putting the micro details of our parking system in ordinance.
So, Mr. Mayor, do I remove my substitute in order to clean up the...
I think your substitute motion is out of order then.
Thank you. I'll be back.
I guess what I would say is that if the council is comfortable adopting the ordinances with the general direction, we'll take the notes that we're hearing, this recommendations back to the Parking Advisory Board and the staff group that's been working on this, several of them who aren't here this evening, and kind of look at those and see. I think there is some room for some compromise in some areas, so we will take a closer look at that. And that's what is established through the Parking Advisory Board, not in ordinance. I think I'm repeating myself a lot. Sorry.
Okay, let's go to Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the point of order because that's where I was headed with my comments, but I just wanted to state, and I wanted to caution my colleagues that that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to just build the framework for the new parking that we have downtown. We need to resist trying to craft it and put the details in it. Because that's what the advisory board is for, which we just heard. So I think what we need to do is resist wanting to make changes. We heard tonight just from two businesses who have opposite interests. One would have a big problem with a 3-hour periphery because now that hits that business even harder than the 2-hour one does because those people can stay even longer. So every business that's in the current periphery is not going to like the fact that you want to change it from 2 to 3. But it's not even appropriate for us to do that at this point. And what I would say again to my colleagues is, let's please get the framework put in place. Let the advisory board do their work. Let's see this thing in action. Let's see what it generates in revenues and what it does for the downtown business. I think it may be great for the downtown business. There may be some tweaks that the advisory board may have to make and bring back to the council. I don't know if they even have to bring it back to the council. Sarah, can you answer that?
The ordinance is not authored that way currently.
Okay, very good. I greatly appreciate that, honestly, because that has been our problem, is that the council has tried to legislate the parking, and that's why we're in the boat we're in. So I would suggest that we go with this very good framework, which has been gone over many, many, many hours, and a lot of people who have a vested interest in parking downtown have been involved. And so I would just caution my colleagues to let's pass this, let's get it in place, and let the advisory board do their work. I yield.
I'm going to go to the city attorney for a check-in.
I just wanted to address some of the questions related to how the ordinance is set up. Right now, if you look at our current ordinance, every block is listed in there, and whether it's in a 2-hour meters, a long-term meters, a 2-hour zone, a 3-hour zone. And so the whole idea is, Mr. Laurenti touched on some of this, is to take that out of the ordinance, and it allows staff and the parking board to address these issues quicker in a more timely manner. Because if we have to go change an ordinance, it's going to be, by the time we get on an agenda, we do 2 readings and publication, it's going to be a good 90 days. So the idea is to take those things out of the ordinance. Now, that's not to say that you have no say in it. Once you do that, you turn it all over to the city engineer or the parking board, and you're still you're gonna see next time there's gonna be a resolution, I believe, that's gonna accompany second reading, that's gonna set the fee amounts. And so that's gonna be, you know, if you want to go with $15 or $20 or $25 or whatever numbers you want to put in there, that's up to you to set that. And that's the way the ordinance is written. The rest of it is, it's set up for staff to take that study and those recommendations, and to look at, you know, one of the big questions is the employee permit. Is nobody's really sure how many people are going to apply for one of those. And we're going to ask them to pick a block, and there's basically each block is its own zone. And so that's sort of built into the process, is that we're not going to fill up a block with employee permits. And it's going to be, you look at 5th and Main in that block, there's going to be obviously more need for customer turnover in those parking spots than you would find a block south at St. Joe. There's just not the same businesses, not the amount of businesses in that area. So that's gonna inform how the employee permits are given out. So I guess I would urge you to approve this on first reading, and if there really are some other direction you want to give about 3-hour, about tweaking those, perhaps that's an agenda item for next time if you want to vote on a direction for that. That's a discussion we can have.
Okay. We'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Sarah a couple follow-up questions?
Of course.
Thank you. Sarah, you had indicated when you first came to the podium, and thank you for volunteering to come up and kind of shepherd us through this, because you are correct. The way I read the ordinance is we're retweaking the ordinance to remove all of those specific criteria out of it so that we can form this downtown parking committee that is going to actually be able to react much faster than waiting for something to come before city council in order to get some changes done down. And then also when the plan goes into place, they can react a lot faster. But you had also indicated that you wanted to address some of the comments. So
Yes.
I'd like to give you the opportunity. Would you like to tell us?
Thank you. So the comment about 3-hour parking, I think the staff group and the advisory board in going towards that direction would like a better understanding of some of the other customers downtown who would be requesting that. Our parking consultant, working with them in the parking study, and then following up with them even this week just to check in with them, like, we're going with the 2 hours because we understand that most stays downtown that are in a timed area are going to fall within that time period. And they confirmed that was the case, and what they recommended, that 3 hours just generally makes it much too easy for employees to abuse the on-street parking. And that's really the philosophy of where that comes from. It just makes it much too easy for employees to do that. So I think we would prefer more direction on some of the other issues just to be able to justify that. Who else besides the Elks Theater is having heartburn at night laying awake thinking that their customers are not going to be able to be downtown for enough time?
And I know the suggestions that I've been reading as far as comments and stuff is that also looking to expand the hours of metered and the 2 hours in parking from the traditional, what is it today, 8 to 5?
Yes, the outline attached to the agenda shows changing the hours of enforcement. In the metered, in the hourly areas, it's currently, so hourly today, meaning the core, Monday through Saturday, 7:30 to 6, and we are proposing Monday through Friday, 7 to 5 in the hourly areas.
And so not the metered areas, just the hourly areas?
Correct.
Okay, so that actually opens up more free parking on Saturday?
Exactly, and we were kind of coming at that from the perspective of what we observe today in the periphery areas is that there's block after block of empty parking meters with no one parked there. So no one's parking there really, let's not charge for it. I do appreciate the concerns about Fifth and Main being so close to Main Street Square. I hear those concerns. I think it's something we need to pay attention to, and we will. I think it's oversimplified to assume that everyone who's coming to Main Street Square will want to park for free and cross Fifth Street. If I'm bringing my family, I don't want to carry coolers and towels and all that stuff as far as I have to, so I'm going to be willing to pay for a few hours. Or maybe we're going to have breakfast at Tally's first and then go to the square. You know, so people are going to make parking decisions differently based on different situations, based on the weather, based on who's with them, where they're going next, where they're coming from. So we just, you know, want to kind of start simple with this, and then when we respond to issues, which we want to be ready to respond, which is why we're setting the ordinance this way, we know exactly what the issue is, how it's interacting with all the other changes in the system, and address it accordingly.
And thank you. And you know, when this, reading up what's in the media versus what has been provided to City Council, I was having this discussion with my husband, and he was already starting to nitpick it too, and I looked at him and I went, zzz! So again, I'm almost out of time, but just want to clarify exactly what you're telling us. What the City Council is voting on tonight is to remove the specifics out of our ordinance so that we can react more quickly and allow a committee to actually hear those concerns and react and get the parking in our downtown area more of a fluid process, and to get the retail turnover that we need, but also to satisfy the employees because they can apply for an employee parking lot. But all of that will not be set by ordinance, which is a very, very slow process. We're trying to streamline it so that it goes to a community or a committee that can react a lot quicker.
Correct. And I can address the other 2 points very quickly if you'd like me to, if someone would like me to.
The mayor says he will allow me the time for you to do that,
Okay.
Sarah. Thank you.
The second suggestion from Councilman Solomon was about the fine. We can definitely take a look at that. That will come back as a fee resolution, so we can make an adjustment to that and bring that back at a lower rate if that's the wish. And then to number 3, permits being at least half of the street being not permitted. We're already planning on having it be much less than half. So, I mean, if we create 2 parking spaces in every zone, there's 34 zones. That's 68 spaces. That's as much as some of our off-street lease lots. So we're trying to take a light touch with this permit program. We want to not villainize employees for working downtown. We want to have a place for them, but we want to preserve our on-street parking for customers to every extent possible. We're really trying to make good use of underutilized spots, not put more strain on areas that already have a lot of demand.
And I think the comment was already made, I'm not sure if it was you or someone else, but especially the gentleman that came up and said that he himself has used the 3-hour parking when he knows he's, you know, got another meeting to go to, that we do want people to utilize the permits within the parking structures, not on the on-street parking.
Correct,
So,
yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mayor.
Now we'll go to Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this is what I was getting at, is that I know we're not setting these parameters up here tonight. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Hensel?
Please.
Okay. Yeah, so that is correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so no matter what, if we pass this, there's not automatically a $25 fine or automatically a 2-hour limit on the peripherals? They're just recommendations at this point?
Correct.
Okay, that's why I make sure that's out there in the public. We haven't set these points yet, and I would urge you to listen to what we have to say here, because I'd hate to have to deal with it again. Because I can tell you right now that I know the Elks is just one entity downtown, but I do see it as iconic, and I do see it as a unique business that does have obvious concerns that others don't have in a lot of ways, just because of the length of a movie and whatnot. So I do want to. I think the 3-hour parking lot limit is something I would like to see. Obviously, I'm not going to micromanage the process. I said that already at Legal and Finance. I don't want to do that, but I think it's something to consider strongly, or some sort of alternative, as well as the limit. You wrote an excellent email that outlined a lot of these questions. I appreciate that. Cleared up some stuff for me that the public has probably not seen, but it does outline the fact that we don't know how many employee permits we're going to need right now, or residential permits we're going to need at this point. probably 2 per block maximum, and so you can only park in that block, correct?
Yes, within the block, and it's not a designated spot that belongs to you.
So you won't
It's-
have like 20 permitted property
no.
taken up with the entire side of a street?
No.
Okay. And that was another thing to think of. And there's also a couple unique situations, like I know in the 900th block of, I think it's Maine, over by the federal building, there's retail on one side, and then there's the federal building on the other. And maybe you consider that, when you look at that as a committee, that, the one side doesn't have any retail in that, so you're not really hurting them by having extra permits on that side as opposed to having them on the other side with all retail. Things like that of nature, and I really appreciate, all the conversation up here. I just want to make sure we weren't getting out of order with what we were doing, because I know it was not what we were supposed to be voting on, and I think that's the misconception as it got out in the news, that we were setting these these fines were already set in stone, these hours were already set in stone, and all this was already set in stone. It's not, and it's part of the committee's process. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I do appreciate all of that, and I said, and I know I have complete support on this. I think $25 is way too much. I think it's just going to be a thing that's going to make a lot of people angry. I don't know what that number is, but I'm the guy that came up with the $10 off the top of my head, because I thought it sounded good. I don't know, I was trying to compromise, because we were trying to change it back then. So I just take those things, I know you will, and I know you take this seriously. I know the committee takes it seriously as well, but I appreciate everybody's efforts, and I hope that this allays some of the fears of the downtown businesses, and of course, it probably won't, but this is not set yet, folks, and so you still have the chance to input, and by all means, contact us. I know we will be more than willing to carry the water for you, so to speak, and make sure that this process is protected, because it's obviously vital to our downtown, vital to everything else out there. And the last thing we want to do is anything that's going to hurt the downtown any way, shape, or form. So I hope the message gets out that this is not set tonight. We're not setting this. There's still a chance that this is not, a big chance actually, looking around the dais, this will not happen this way. And I hope that everybody, considers that. And I appreciate all your hard work, and that your email, once again, cleared up a lot of questions for me, and I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Sarah, don't go too far away. If you could come back with the rationale for the fines, also include that so we have the ability or the opportunity to read that rationale over. So whatever you come up with, and forgive me, I just had to go back and reread the parking study again, and I haven't got through all 189 pages. I think that's what it is. I'm rereading it again to get a flavor for it, but I think with all due respect to my council seatmates here sitting beside me, is that we want to resist this tweaking for the ordinance right now, because we did that a few years back, and now we're paying for it. And so that's the reason why we're here today, just because we did some tweaking a few years back. So resist that and take the advice of the advisory council to bring forward. Sarah, if you could just elaborate just a little bit more on some of the points that you made on this email that you sent out. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood this is more reaching into the area of policy versus ordinance. I just wanted to make sure everybody that you had an opportunity to share with us that's the direction. The email that you sent out is more in the general direction of policy. Please.
Yeah, those were great questions about how we're going to be managing the parking and how different situations are going to, the logistics of it, how it's going to work. So yeah, I believe your question was just to confirm that the details of how the management will occur is not ordained not specifically prescribed in the ordinance. Was there another question?
Yes.
There were 11 questions in that email, I believe.
Yeah, there was, and I'm not going to go through them all. So just wanted to make sure that I'm looking at this 2-hour parking, and I've got some concerns, but I want to reread this and see what rationale they had for coming up with the 2-hour decision on it. And then some other questions came up about ability to pay for the fines. I've had some constituents raise that question, and if they are not able to pay that $25 fine, then what do they do? And then the other one is, it's already been mentioned, but several folks were concerned about stacking the parking in front of their business. So I want to say, just a real fast read on what I've been going through, that is more of a policy decision versus an ordinance decision. And that the advisory committee will be taking a look at that.
Can you clarify what you mean by stacking the parking?
Oh, sure, I'm sorry. Meaning that residents will be getting a parking, people that live downtown, they will be probably getting a parking permit. And then also employees will be getting parking permits. So that's what I mean by placing the greater number of those permits in front of other businesses. So
Yeah.
I'll give you that opportunity to explain
There's,
that.
34 different block zones downtown. They all have different characters. Some may be able to accommodate 0 or 1 or 2 permits. Others, I'm thinking just around the corner from the library, may be able to accommodate 7 or 8 or more. So we really want to have the flexibility to be able to first understand the demand and then figure out how to most efficiently distribute that throughout the supply that we have that's currently underutilized. The intent is not to put more strain on the areas that already are feeling the push. So
Exactly, I appreciate that, and that's my major concern is that we aren't tweaking this from the dais. That makes me very uncomfortable, so thank you. I'll yield.
Becky Drury.
Thank you, Mayor. May I direct a couple of comments to Ms. Hansley? Sarah, first of all, I want to tell you thank you for all the hard work you've done on this. I know you've been at this for a couple of years. I remember going to a community feedback session that you had on it before I was even on the council. So you've been working on this for a long time. And we've had professional consultants come in to work with us, to give us, because none of us are professional parking consultants. And I think that we need to rely on you as our leader in this area and our professional study that we received back with just great data in it. And I just want to, again, say thank you for leading the charge. And if I'm going to give a little bit of impact, $10 is not a deterrent for me. I'm more than willing to pay a $10 fine to park all day downtown. So that's not a deterrent. So I think that it needs to be more than $10. That's my 2 cents that I'm not going to put in the paper. But I just want, yeah, you can put it in the paper. And anyway, but it is an in-depth parking study, and I like that it's flexible and that you will be, your hand will be on this and you will be knowing what you're doing, and I trust you. And that's why I voted to approve the ordinance. So
I just have to say there have been a large group of staff working on this. Kathy Bach has been the mastermind behind a lot of really understanding the enforcement, and the attorney's office and the finance department and public works. It really has been a collaborative effort, but thank you very much.
Yeah, we know that it's more than just you, but you've been the face, so I appreciate it. I yield.
Darla Drew.
Thank you so much. I really don't have a question as much as I have a comment. As a citizen of Rapid City, I think I've served on different parking committees for the last 3 decades. We have changed things back and forth, and we've tried so many things. So finally we brought in not just a citizen committee, but some professionals that could really help us with our parking. The modernization of our downtown parking is really overdue. The credit cards that we'll be using, I know that a lot of people don't use apps, but there are a lot of people that do and will, and that will extend the time that they can be in their parking spot. If I'm out and I'm having a great time and I decide, okay, I'm going to be here another hour, I can just go to my phone and hopefully just, pay it from where I am. That is an incredible thing for me to even think of happening. I don't have to run out and try and do that. I did the employee shuffle. I work downtown, so I understand some of those concerns, and I hope that this will help us. I mean, as we're looking at this city that has already changed so much downtown, and with the bringing in the B21s and that influx of people, we're going to have a lot of people from large cities that are going to expect that credit card. They're going to expect that app. They're going to expect the things that you guys are putting into place right now. And so I really respect the work that you've done, because I think that it's really future focused. And I don't think we can just, we're not going to tweak up here, and I'm really glad that this council seems to understand that we're just going to put this into place, and then people that are really on the ground, that are watching this and can take care of these problems quicker than we can, and with more understanding than I have, will take care of the problems, and hopefully we will come to some kind of good consensus within the next couple years, but it's going to be a few years. So I see that, I respect it, and I really appreciate the way that we're looking at the future of downtown. Thank you.
Lisa Modrick.
I'm sure my time is just about done, but I'll take advantage of it anyway. So, all good. Again, reminder that we have a proposed parking policy. It's proposed so that we have things in front of us that we're looking at. We also got a feedback from not just business owners, but also citizens. Been to those meetings as well. We need to be listening to what they're saying. They're the ones that generate the revenue for the city. They're what makes the city tick. We're a shop local, buy local. We're pushing that hard. We can't push the business away. If we want them to buy local, we've got to give them a reason and a way to get here and stay here. One of the hashtag comments, because we've talked about hashtags a lot in the public meetings, is it far enough? We just put $4 million to go down east of 5th, and that's the push we're going for. So is the hashtag even, are we cutting it off too soon? And I think that Aaron brought that up. It probably needs to go another block. We've got a lot of business that's moved that way. Harriet and Oak, the VFW, I mean, there's a lot of movement there. That's also a critical area for where our dining and our shopping and our entertainment districts are, all in one. So I appreciate the study, but I think the study still cuts it short. We need to expand it now and base it on our community. Let's take the piece of the study that might be a cut and paste, and let's remold it so that it's our city. And finally, I want to say, because I like what Wade had said as far as, you know, the policies and the resolutions, we are the policymakers, and we're also the rates and charges. We have to look over these items when they come before us, no matter what department comes before us. We have to weigh that out. We have to weigh it out as well with public opinion. So it's very important. You cannot cut the city council out of what our job is to do. And I appreciate that you won't do that when you bring us out of the form that is in this link and bring us what's going to work for us. But you've only got a short period of time, really, to do it, because your install is in May, isn't it?
We're aiming for early June is the earliest it would go in. Yep.
Very good. So at what point will the public get more information then on some of the things that they'd like to have addressed that they've asked today?
Well, some of the questions that have come up today, we've provided our understanding of the situation to the best that we're able to respond to them. As far as more information about the permitting system, the company, IPS, is building that website right now. We're going to be seeing a demo of it, sort of the test version that will probably have bugs that need to be worked out later this week or early next week. So the goal is to have that website live by early May so that we have a month to get the word out through the Main Street Square, Destination Rapid City Business Group, through press releases and Facebook, through radio interviews and TV interviews. You know, this is available. Come set up an account. Let us know where you would like a permit if you would like one. Many people who already have permits will just begin to park in their existing lease spots. That's what we are hoping to see. The majority of that would be the where most of the change in the system comes. So. But circling back, we're working with Destination Rapid City to plan a mixer for early May so that we can get everyone together and get some more of this information in a face-to-face way, and also continue to put it online, continue to do some of our other digital outreach.
So is the hashtag then of where the permit or where the meters are going in, is that just a proposal, or are you still looking at possible expansion, which was requested on East of 5th?
I think that area will be a great candidate for meters in the future. As we look at it today, though there are people who park there, we just don't see the capacity being quite high enough. The north side of that street often has maybe only 2 or 3 spots open, but the south side of the street is usually entirely empty. So once we start to see capacity along the whole block face, that's going to be the time that we look at that a little bit more closely, and we'll have actual data to know how long people, you know, how many people are parking there, how long are they staying with the new enforcement technology that's in place.
Thank you. I'm going to yield now to the next council person. Thank you.
Jason Solomon for a minute.
Thank you. Well, you guys all got extra time, but I can go back on 42 and get another 5 minutes.
50 seconds, go, keep going.
So, real quick, the tweaks I was suggesting was for the policy. Obviously, that's where the information lies. My one concern is that, is there an appeal process to the council? Is the parking committee decision final? From what I can read in the ordinance, it looks like they're the be-all, end-all on this, and that if people have an issue with, what if the community does not want 3 hours, but the city staff wants 2? The community input doesn't matter? It might matter to you, but you as a person, but my concern is sometimes changes need to come through the process that is appealable, that can ultimately come to the people that are elected, because this is, again, not the business, this is a government, and so it's a representative government. Obviously, we're going to have a mayor-appointed committee that will be approved by a council. I think that's good, and I don't want this council to get into the minutia. But 3 hours versus 2 hours is a pretty big deal. There are some things that are a big deal. I do think that should come to a city council. That's my concern. I guess I give you an opportunity to respond to that.
Yeah, just to clarify, you mean appeal the decisions about the management, not appeal parking violations?
Yeah, violations, those sorts of things. We're not for that. But I'm talking about some of the big policies. 3 hours versus 2 hours, number of permits. There's some bigger ticket items, I think.
Yeah. So the way the ordinance is written, the Public Works Director is kind of the main person responsible for the management of these zones and the details of the policy, with recommendation from the advisory board. So, if we're hearing from council members, if we're hearing from community members, there's going to be heat on city staff and the advisory committee to do something about it.
Okay. I guess again, my big thing is if it is the 3 hour, 2 hour thing, for example, to me is a big policy decision. And I'd hate for us to outsource our responsibility on some big items, not on the small day-to-day operational, but those are big strategic kind of items. I have some concerns about that on the parking committee. I'm probably alone on this. Every detail, we don't need to be in every detail. No, we should be out of the fines and all of that. But on some of the big strategic items, I just worry about the voice of the people, which is us. Mm-hmm. We are the voice of the people, including the mayor. Are we left out of that process when we should be in the process, at least on policy setting, not on operational items? But that's for this council to decide, I guess. Thank you.
Steve Laurenti.
I appreciate the concern, and I know, Jason, in my time on the council is drawing to an end, but I just want to say that this is what has got us into trouble before, because we let the squeaky wheel get the grease all the time, and it's always the squeakiest wheel that's the loudest, right? So, because the other people aren't saying anything, and that's what the advisory board is for, is to more quickly respond. And no doubt the council can speak to the advisory board at any time, and so the council's not being cut out of it at all. I think their voice will be heard as well from, that the advisory board will take the council's word as well. But the whole point of this is to make it more responsive, as been said, make it quicker to deal with the different dynamics of the parking. And we have experts, not elected officials. And I understand the elected officials are the people that, but the whole point is, if you have one or two businesses that come to you, that's nowhere near the majority of the business owners. If you have 3 or 4, that's nowhere near the majority of the business owners. And so we need to make sure that those business owners know where to go so that they can get their voice to the advisory board and to the staff that are going to make those decisions, and make those decisions much faster than elected officials will. And this is the framework that we need to approve tonight so that we can get this moving forward. I yield.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, I know that I appreciate Councilman Solomon's comments. I agree as well that you always want to have the government as a place to, you have a First Amendment right to petition your government, right? So I don't think there's any way we could ever keep the city council out of it if we wanted to. So I think that, if there's ever any big problems, I think the citizens will obviously bring it forth to us, hopefully, or the council members will, and they'll make that appeal directly to us either way. I don't think there's any way to take, like I said, it's a constitutional right. So I think just keeping us out of the day-to-day part of it is great. It's better for everybody, obviously, but I mean, obviously, even though it's in the ordinance that it goes, the parking decision's final with the committee, I think that there's always a chance they're going to bring them forth to us. And by all means, go ahead and do that, even if I'm not sitting here. But so I agree with his. I understand his concerns completely, because I really hate the idea that we don't have the direct control. But we don't want to respond to every, like Mr. Laurenti said, every squeaky wheel out there either instantly. So just putting that out there, and I appreciate his comments. Thank you.
City Attorney.
I just wanted to address a little bit the 3-hour, 2-hour policy comment. I think really the purpose of the ordinance is to take some of that off of the council, and you've talked about that a little bit, but I think the idea is that there might be a spot for 2-hour parking and a spot for 3-hour parking. And I think the idea is to have this advisory board and staff look at the actual parking patterns and the data of trips and how long people are parking on specific blocks, and look at that. So there might be an east of 5th zone at some point that includes more meters or has a different timing than, say, the south part of the district. And so I want you to be careful about saying, well, we just want to say all the periphery is 3-hour, because I think this is set up to allow flexibility, so there's more than just it's meters or 3-hour. There might be a different zone that is something that will work, and so that's really, I mean, that's part of the idea, is that the staff and this advisory board can look at the data and say, all right, east of 5th is developing, we need to make some tweaks here, we need to add some other meters, we need to do something else in this part, so they can make their own zone, basically, and address that. So that's just, I just wanted to address that.
Okay, thank you. Motion on the floor is for approval of item 41. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 42, first reading, ordinance 6324, an ordinance updating and revising the general parking regulations of the City of Rapid City by amending Chapter 10.40 of the Rapid City Municipal Code.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Scott, second by Laurenti. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to community development items. 43, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Hermano LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan, proposed lot 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B, 5A, and 5B of Lot 8 of Fountain View subdivision, generally described as being located north of Harmony Heights Lane and south of I-90.
Move to approve.
Okay, motion to approve with stipulations by Scott, second by Laurenti. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 44. A request by KTM Design Solutions for KTLDCO LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lot 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40 of Rockanon Ranch Estates, generally described as being located west of the intersection of Lennon Lane and Hendricks Lane.
Move to approve with stipulations.
Motion to approve with stipulations by Scott, second by Drury. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Takes us down to public hearing items 45 through 53, and we'll open the public hearing on those items. We have a speaker request from Tony Marshall on item 53.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Tony Marshall. I'm with Park Hill Development. I've been working on this project with staff for, I think, nearly 3 years. It's been a long time. They've worked hard. We've worked hard. We've got a lot of no's from staff. But there's been enough yeses to allow us to be here today as developers. So it's been wonderful working with staff, as it has for the last 20 years. So again, we've all worked very hard on this. This project is, I don't have a map, but perhaps Patsy will bring that forth later. But this is This area is obsolescently zoned. I don't think you'd find too many requests today to zone residential next to light industrial. So this is really the cure for that obsolescent zoning. It has limited use. Normally you'd want an office commercial buffer between light industrial and residential, but that really doesn't make sense in this particular area. It doesn't make sense to continue the light industrial as there's residential right next door. It doesn't make any sense to leave it alone, frankly, for us as developers. It's frankly not fantastic looking open space. So something should be done with this site, and what better use than to create on this site what already exists in the neighborhood. This is just an extension of what we've already created over the last 20 years. But we have to have help. The biggest component of this TIF is for a landscape buffer between our new residential community and the light industrial next door. That's the largest component. So frankly, it makes sense, and I appreciate your consideration tonight.
Okay, thank you. That'll end the public hearing on those items and take us to consent public hearing items 45 through 50.
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Scott, second by Lewis to approve items 45 through 50. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Down to non-consent public hearing items, starting with 51. Second reading, ordinance 6317, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by the City of Rapid City Parks and Recreation Department for a rezoning request from medium-density residential district to public district for property generally described as being located in the 1000 block of East Minnesota Street.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Scott, second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item 51A, a request by Scott O'Meara for OM Properties to consider an application for a vacation of right-of-way for property generally described as being located at 316 and 324 East Boulevard.
Move to approve with stipulation.
Motion to approve by Scott with stipulation, second by Lewis, and we'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the motions, but I would need to ask, I believe it is Planning Department, Patsy Horton, if I may, for a couple of questions.
Okay.
Patsy, just a little bit of understanding on my part for landscaping and trees in this area. I know it's primarily putting in a sidewalk and all of that for this 316 and 324 East Boulevard. But can you address any of the concerns on tree removal and in this area landscaping?
With this particular application, we cannot require landscaping as a part of this vacation.
Understand. And if I may direct a question for Dale Tech, please.
Yes.
Thank you for raising your hand. In general, for this whole area, we've got some landscaping and trees getting replanted in this general area, but can you elaborate a little bit further on this?
Yeah, I believe I can. In this specific area, there are no trees.
Yes.
There is no landscaping. It's a parking area. The City of Rapid City is currently reconstructing East Boulevard and part of East North Street. It's a 2-year project. We will be working in this phase next year, so south of the Omaha Street on East Boulevard, adjacent to this property. At that point in time, there will be a sidewalk that will be installed as part of the project. There will not be any landscaping as part of the project included in this area, as there is none there now. For lack of a better term, it's kind of an industrial area, general commercial. Certainly, if the property owner does something, revitalizes their property, they will have to be compliant then with the landscaping ordinance. So at that point in time, appropriate landscaping will be installed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I yield.
Okay, motion on the floor for 51A is to approve with stipulations. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 52, Second reading, ordinance 6318, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code for a request by the City of Rapid City Parks and Recreation Department for rezoning request from low-density residential district to public district for property generally described as being located at 3820 Odie Drive.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion to approve by Drew, second by Scott. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 53, approve resolution 2018-081, a request by Spurlick Consulting, Inc. for Park Hill Development Incorporated to consider an application for a resolution creating Park Hill Tax Increment District and approval of resolution 2018-082 approving project plan for property generally described as being located north of Sydney Drive, east of Smith Avenue, and west of Campbell Street.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Drury and a second by
Retain the floor, please.
Modrick, and Ms. Drury has the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple comments. This is a great example of an infill project within Rapid City, and I know this particular project started before I was on the council because I remember coming in and watching some of the meetings, and I appreciate Mr. Marshall's patience, and I also appreciate his comments about how good it was to work with our city staff on developing this. And you can tell that you've gone back and forth with all the attachments that are attached to this to go through. So I just appreciate your willingness to work with staff willing to work with Mr. Marshall to make this a win-win for Rapid City. And that is a pretty unique area, and I'm excited to see a nice buffer and a nice housing development going through in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Marshall, thank you very much for taking me out there years ago. I had the opportunity to take a look at that, and you sold me right on the spot. So now if we can get into the area of affordable housing, which I was reading on and seeing some of the comments being made, that's the direction your intent is to do that. So I applaud you very much so. Again, thank you very much for working with us.
Okay, the motion on the floor for 53 is for approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 54 is the bill. Oh, I'm sorry. One no from Steve Laurenti. Sorry. Item 54, the bill list, will go to Pauline Sumption, Finance Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $5,208,543.70.
Motion to approve by Solomon, second by Laurenti. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Scott, second by Lewis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.